What is the best possible lineup for the Cubs as they start their season, their second season, I guess, in Arizona on Thursday? Some experts have some ideas. I want to take a look at this based on the numbers. Hey, welcome into the Setup Man. This is me, Kyle Stanley. I am bringing you everything Chicago Cubs preseason, in between the Tokyo opener and the stateside opener, and I'm bringing it to you all season long, including a lot of our Setup Man crew as we've expanded our team. We have a lot of really exciting things coming up. So let me get you some information on some of those things. First of all, myself and Alex Brault, Setup Man crew member, are going to be bringing you the watch along on Thursday as the Cubs open the season in Arizona in the U.S. And then the same Alex Brault will be doing the post games with me starting this Sunday. So every Sunday through Wednesday, you can expect myself, Alex Brault, and a few other of the Setup Men crew members to come to you after the games. Now, here's the key thing. You're not just getting our reaction. You're also able to participate in these post games. So make sure you join us so that you can call in. You can share your frustrations or your excitement or whatever have you from the game. We're going to ask you, the fans, to react as well as us giving our take. Now let's get to the 26-man roster decisions. The Cubs still have a few to make, and I was able to take a look at Patrick Mooney's article. I really liked what he had to say. We're pretty much right on the same page as I'm sharing my screen here with you. Really from a 1 through 9, all the same that you saw on opening day, except for with the addition of Nico Hoerner, now you're probably going to see a little bit of a different bench. But the bench basically is what you would expect of that. Vidal Brujan no longer will be on the bench. And then you've got Gage Workman, John Birdie, Justin Turner, and then Carson Kelly. That's what it would be a shock if Vidal Brujan makes it over Gage Workman, but that's what I'm thinking. And it looks right now from Patrick Mooney's eyes that he's kind of saying between Vidal Brujan and Gage Workman, but I think a lot of us are already in that camp of it's probably going to be Gage Workman. Rotation, I like this if he's right. Justin Steele, Jameson Tyone, Shota Imanaga, Matthew Boyd, number 5, Ben Brown, and that's what we would expect given that he was stretched out in opening day. Ben Brown is your highest ceiling 5th starter. I would love to see that. I have expressed a few concerns about the lower velocity, but I think he'll be just fine, as we kind of determined in that video that I did that it's really just a reps thing. So why not give him the reps while he's up here in the majors? Don't waste him down in the minors. Let's get those innings up here in the majors. And in the bullpen, Ryan Presley, Porter Hodge, Nate Pearson, Brad Keller, Ryan Brazier, Julian Merriweather, Colin Ray, Caleb Thielbar. If you missed the news, Tyson Miller was put on the IL. I'm not going to say that that's a stretch, but Cubs fans are smart. I'm putting the tweet up here right now. I asked, will Tyson Miller make this team? And the options were yes, no, or no, but he'll be put on the IL. And Cubs fans guessed no, but he'll be put on the IL. So whether there's something wrong with him or we want to assume that there's something wrong with him is to be seen, but that is the point here. Tyson Miller is on the IL. And so what Patrick is saying, Brad Keller takes that spot, which I think we can all agree he deserves the opportunity. He's had a great spring. The question is, does Brad Keller get that last spot? Is it someone else? Maybe Eli Morgan gets recalled. I don't think they would do that just because when you use an option, you use an option. Why not just take the most advantage of it? And again, you can argue that, hey, we should DFA Caleb Thielbar, or we should, put Nate Pearson down there first because he needs to work on slug and keeping the ball in the ballpark. You can argue all that stuff, but the thing is, at the end of the day, there's options, and Eli Morgan had more options than Nate Pearson or anyone else that's on this roster. And if they would have sent down Porter Hodge instead of Eli Morgan, I would imagine all of Cubs fandom will be up in arms. So for that reason, Eli Morgan kind of makes the most sense. Give Brad Keller an opportunity. If he sucks in the first 2 weeks, just call Eli Morgan up, DFA Brad Keller, and it's very simple. Or you can, I don't know what, I believe they have to purchase that contract now, so it no longer would be a minor league contract that they have with Brad Keller, so I think you do have to DFA him. I don't know the specifics on that, but I do know that this ends up working out really well because a lot of Cubs fans wanted to see Brad Keller get a shot. Now, before we get to the lineup, there is one other thing as you see on your screen here, and this is from Sam at Chris Mass Dust on Twitter, and I don't know where he's getting this from. I'm not sure who this is, but it has gotten a lot of views. And Sam only has 434 followers, but Sahadev Sharma did tweet it out as well. And so for that reason, I think there's got to be some legitimacy to it. Just keep in mind, the Cubs have the hardest April, followed by the easiest May for an entire team. It's the weirdest schedule that you're going to see probably come out for the Cubs probably ever. But because of this, you're looking at, and by the way, it kind of evens out. They end up having the 23rd toughest, meaning the 7th easiest or the 8th easiest schedule throughout the entire season is essentially how they're kind of putting this out there. But the Cubs have the toughest April, facing amazing teams in the likes of the Dodgers, the Padres, the Diamondbacks, the Phillies, goes on and on and on. Even the A's are much improved, and the Cubs have to face them, and I wouldn't call that a downturn. Then in May, they're facing the likes of the Rockies and the Marlins and yada, 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 and that makes the easiest schedule. If you look from basically March all the way to September, the Cubs have a really tough March and April, a really quote-unquote easy May, about average on June, and then they have a easier schedule in July and August. I wouldn't call it easy, but easier. And then they have a semi-tough schedule in September. So you're looking at essentially 3 to 4 easy months and 2 tough months. So if the Cubs can come out 500 in April, you're happy. But in my opinion, the Cubs have to figure out this lineup situation. And I heard it put really, really well on the Northside Territory podcast. We're giving a lot of love to The Athletic right now, but Sahadev and Patrick said, listen, when the Dodgers go out and they construct an ultimate lineup, they don't have to win on the margins. They can put guys like Alex Vesey out there to close a game, and when he's their 5th best reliever, he's still probably the best reliever or the 2nd best reliever on the Cubs. That's the kind of decisions that the Dodgers can make. They don't have to make a lot of decisions on the margins. The Cubs have to make a lot of decisions on the margins in order to be successful. So when you have anyone struggling in this lineup, they have to be strategically put in certain areas to kind of mask those struggles. So when I see this lineup that Patrick Mooney puts out, it's essentially the same lineup as we saw from Craig Counsell in Game 1 and Game 2. The only difference is really that you got Nico Horner in there now. But there's things that don't get masked when you're in this type of lineup and someone's struggling. Matt Shaw, for example. Michael Busch, for example. Michael Busch is not a scary 4-batter, at least right now, not in his career, because, 775 OPS last year, that's not quote-unquote scary from a number 4 spot. Matt Shaw is a rookie, and he's being asked to bat 5th. That feels kind of heavy on the rookie. And if he's not producing, he ended the game for the Cubs in both the first and second game of the year. The second game being he was the tying run at the plate, and that's a lot of pressure on a rookie. So I want to construct this based on the facts. What is the best position for each one of these players based on history of their numbers? So here's what I've done for you, and you can thank me later, but these numbers right here on your screen are where the Cubs' current 9 thrive, where they have the best success in a batting lineup. Now, there's one caveat here, and that is that Matt Shaw has no major league experience, so he's not going to be on this list. And then you got guys like Michael Busch and Miguel Amaya and Pete Crow Armstrong who just don't have a lot of major league experience, so we have to take that with a grain of salt. So basically what I said is you had to have a minimum of 30 games in your respective spot. I couldn't take 5 games if you're hitting, batting 1,000 and slugging 2,000. That's not a good sample size. So at least 30 games, which for some guys is a lot, some guys it's not. But you can see every single player on the Cubs basically just doesn't want to bat in the first 4 in the lineup, at least if you take their best. Now, some of these guys still do very well in different spots in the lineup, and we're going to look at that here in a second. But based on this, and you'll see it, Ian Happ batting 5th, 251, 360, 525 on the slug. That's 119 games. By the way, that's a slash line. So 251 average, 360 on base, 525 slug. Seiya Suzuki, Kyle Tucker, Michael Busch all thrive in the 6th spot. Seiya, 373, 444, and 706. 706 slug from Seiya in 30 games in 6th spot. Kyle Tucker, 304, 373, 570 in 110 games. And Michael Busch, 278, 336, 548 in 37 games. Nico, batting 7th, 343, 407, 412, by far his best spot in the lineup, and that's in 63 games. Miguel Amaya and Pete Crow Armstrong, both at number 8, 261, 314, and 421 for PCA in 78 games, and Miguel Amaya, 248, 351, and 407 in 42 games. Then you got Dansby at 271, 301, and 493 in the 9th spot in 49 games. Now, key thing here, that comes out to be a 794 OPS for Dansby. Nowhere in a lineup, not 1st through 9th, does he have a over 800 OPS. So Dansby, you'll see, is actually, no matter where he's at in the lineup, he's pretty balanced. And I say quote-unquote balanced because we all want him to be more productive at the plate. But at the end of the day, the reason the Cubs signed him is because of his glove, and then he's decent at the plate when he's at his best. So Dansby is, to me, and what I'm going to do for you here is process of elimination, because the goal now is to say, okay, based on this information, and then based on maybe where they're second most productive, maybe third most productive, where can we bat these guys in the lineup so that it doesn't totally feel like we're putting a square peg in a circle hole, which is going to be difficult because there's a lot of factors that go into this, and you'll see that in a second. But the long story short is we can't have 3 6 batters, and we can't have 2 8th batters. So Seiya, Tucker, and Busch need to be moved somewhere else. And then PCA and Amaya have to be moved somewhere else. And so you look at Seiya and Tucker, and you say, well, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to bat them 6 because they're your 2 best hitters. From a production standpoint, I'm not talking about from clutch. I'm not talking about any of those things. You can say whatever you want about Seiya. I'm talking about from just pure production over the last 2 years, we'll call it. These are your 2 best hitters in the lineup. Ian Happ batting 5th could feel good. Might keep him there. PCA and Amaya, one of them has to go. One of them has to be moved a little bit. And again, Dansby, because he's so flexible, I don't see him batting 9th. And then, of course, Matt Shaw, who is batting 5th in Japan against the Dodgers, doesn't feel like that should last very long if he continues to struggle the way that he did offensively in those first 2 games. Extremely small sample size, extremely great starting pitching and bullpen there from the Dodgers, so you have to keep that in mind. So I would say Craig Counsell probably gives him a few more shots at 5th and then says, all right, it looks like you're struggling. We're going to drop you down. So I'm going to skip forward to that assumption. We're going to basically say, okay, let's assume that Matt Shaw not batting 5th. And we're going to take all these numbers, we're going to take all the things that we've looked at, and I just want to start plugging guys into certain locations. So let's, first of all, start with the absolute. When you look at Kyle Tucker and where he is great, and the reason I'm starting with Kyle Tucker is because that's where you build your lineup around. Kyle Tucker is the guy that you say, okay, let's find that superstar where he produces the best, and let's keep him there, let's put him there, and let's go ahead and build the rest of the lineup around that. Now, he's not going to bat 6th. I don't care what you say. You can't convince me to bat him 6th, even though that's the best spot that he's shown in production-wise. The second best spot, it makes the most sense. 908 OPS, batting 3rd, 291, 377, 531. Batting 2nd, he's also just about on line with that, but you have a 100-game sample batting 3rd and only 38-game sample batting 2nd. So I would like to see Kyle Tucker batting 3rd. Keep him there, and let's go ahead and build a lineup around that. Now, next up, currently, Ian Happ has been leading off. Who else could lead off besides Ian Happ? Once again, Ian Happ's best spot is 5th in the lineup. A nearly 900 OPS, and if you look at the lineup spots, there's no other location where he comes close to that you would actually reasonably consider. 8th and 9th is where he has the 2nd and 3rd most production. But then after that, maybe batting 6th, 81 games, a 257, 348, 459. Yeah, you could argue this, but we know he's not batting 3rd, 791 OPS. And we know that as a leadoff hitter, even though he hasn't been phenomenal as a leadoff hitter, he does all the things that you really like out of a leadoff hitter. He sees a lot of pitches. He's got a high on-base percentage, 340. You'd like to see that closer to 350, 360, but it's still really good. He's not going to steal you a lot of bases, but gone are the days of a leadoff hitter being totally about the stolen base. So I just don't really know who else you put at the leadoff spot besides Ian. Now, a lot of you are probably saying, put PCA in leadoff. He has to earn that. Pete Crow Armstrong, first of all, nowhere does he have a on-base percentage of over 314. Looking at his right now, his best position, once again, in the lineup is 8th. 314 on-base percentage. That's not going to cut it for a leadoff position. You need at least 330, 340, ideally over 350 for your on-base percentage. Pete Crow Armstrong will steal a lot of bases, but if you rely on him to take pitches, see pitches, and get on base, those are the two most important things from a leadoff hitter these days, and he's just not going to do that right now in his career. So earn that, and then we'll talk about it. Nico Hoerner is the other one. Now, he did start walking more last year at a slightly higher clip. His on-base percentage in his career is 325 from the first position, which is fine, still not good, barely a notch above Pete Crow Armstrong. And he sees some pitches, but not nearly as many as Ian Happ. So the only thing you like about Nico is the contact and the stolen base threat. So I kind of like that as your number 2 hitter. And why do I put number 2 Nico Hoerner instead of Seiya Suzuki? Well, for the exact reason I told you, there's a lot of intricacies in regards to this lineup. We saw the amount that Michael Busch struggled in the 4th spot, not just in this series, but I got to tell you, I have a hard time wrapping my mind around Michael Busch being our number 4 batter. I'm not hating on Michael Busch. I'm saying I don't find that to be a scary number 4 batter. Your only option for scary is Kyle Tucker and Seiya Suzuki. You can argue all day with me that, well, cleanup hitter isn't supposed to be your scariest hitter. I think right now with this lineup, we have to find a way to put a number 4 hitter that's going to do some damage and some guys in front of him that are going to get on base. Ian Happ gets on base. Nico Hoerner makes contact. Kyle Tucker makes contact and gets on base. So you have 2 out of 3 of your guys are high on base guys, and another one is a good contact guy, which leads to you assuming that Seiya Suzuki will probably come up with a couple runners on and 1 out, or 2 outs and a runner on in the first inning 9 times out of 10. That's the impression that I get. Would you rather have Seiya Suzuki up with a couple on and 1 out, or a man on, call it first, and 2 out? Or would you rather have Michael Busch in that position? I would rather have Seiya Suzuki in that position for that reason. We're going to go Ian Happ, Nico Hoerner, Kyle Tucker, Seiya Suzuki. All right, so Nico Hoerner, by the way, batting second, 265, 346, 346. And that's a 692 OPS, which is fine. It's hovering right around his career OPS. But you have a high on-base percentage at 346 there, and he's a contact guy, and he's going to steal some bases for you. So I really like this combination of Happ, Nico, Tucker, Suzuki. Then you move some guys around. Now, Michael Busch, here's where I'm like, okay, I like Michael Busch in the spot that he's going to be the most successful. When you look at the batting 6th, that is his top position. 884 OPS with a 278 batting average, a 336 on base, and a 548 slugging. In order for that to happen, though, you have to have either Matt Shaw or Dansby Swanson hitting in front of Michael Busch. You could argue PCA batting 5th. I wouldn't be completely opposed to that. The only thing is, once again, I would like to, well, not once again. You're actually going to hear me talk about why I like PCA down the lineup. So let me get to that in a second. But Michael Busch batting 5th versus Dansby Swanson batting 5th. Let's look at the career. Dansby Swanson is a 248, 316, 420 slash, and that's a 736 OPS. Doesn't strike fear into a pitcher, I would say, for Dansby Swanson batting 5th. 160 games, which is one of the top positions in his career. However, Michael Busch batting 5th. He's actually worse batting 5th. 235, 344, 383. But I'm going to slot Michael Busch into the 5th position for 2 reasons. Number 1, lefty, righty, lefty, righty, lefty. We're going back and forth. So there's no back-to-back righties, there's no back-to-back lefties. And actually now this makes the first 6 batters of the game, a pitcher can't get comfortable with seeing back-to-back righties or back-to-back lefties. So I like that. The other thing is he doesn't have a ton of experience in the 5th spot. 25 games. It's not a big enough sample size. So I'm not going to sit here and be like, well, he's bad in the 5th spot. We don't know. He doesn't have enough experience there. So I do think that he's not a 4th batter, but I do think that he could get a little bit more comfortable batting 5th. And then you bat Dansby right after him, who is going to be looking at Dansby. He's at 261, 326, 455 at a 781 OPS batting 6th. That is much better than batting 5th. And aside from the 9th hole here, 794, Dansby doesn't have a second best closer to that. So that is his second best position in the lineup, is batting 6th. Then when we talk about the last 3, which I think is actually extremely important, Miguel Amaya, Pete Crow Armstrong, Matt Shaw, at least to start out. And here's my entire idea behind this. So first of all, I'm going to admit, Miguel Amaya does not have good numbers batting 7th. And you can say, well, Kyle, I thought you really liked that lefty, righty, lefty. You're breaking that up by going Dansby and then Miguel Amaya. You'll hear why in a second. So batting 8th, Miguel Amaya, 758 OPS. Batting 7th, 527. But once again, only 11 games. Not a big enough sample size. Plus, I would venture to say maybe 1 or 2 games that he bat 7th in the second half of last year. All of it was either 8th or the 9th spot. So with that in mind, the idea here becomes, well, Miguel Amaya takes this hotter bat that he's got from the second half of the season, puts it into the 7th spot, and now you've got speed at the bottom of your lineup in Pete Crow Armstrong and Matt Shaw. And then Matt Shaw is protected by Ian Happ. If Ian Happ is protecting Matt Shaw, meaning that Matt Shaw is going to get more hittable pitches, then Matt Shaw starts to hit better, and then it has a chain reaction, and then PCA gets more pitches to hit. If Matt Shaw hits in the number 9 spot, you have potentially 2 guys on, turning the lineup over with speed, first and second, double steal. Now it's second and third. Ian Happ, sack fly. We got another run on the board. We got a 3-run homer. We got a 2-run double, whatever we got. If you put Miguel Amaya in the 8th spot and you say, PCA 7, Miguel Amaya 8, and Matt Shaw 9, or PCA, Shaw, then Amaya, well, then you have a lot less protection of Matt Shaw and PCA because Amaya isn't as scary, quote unquote, as Ian Happ. And then you've got potential speed. If PCA and Matt Shaw get on with 1 out, right, and it's first and third or it's first and second, Miguel Amaya doesn't have speed. He rolls into a double play and your lineup hasn't turned over. I think there's a lot more scenarios where we have Matt Shaw and PCA at the bottom of the lineup, 8 and 9, PCA, then Matt Shaw. And then turns over the lineup, and suddenly you've got a guy in Ian Happ who walks a lot, who can hit, the sack fly. Maybe he strikes out. Maybe he gets out with 2 outs, but the likelihood of him getting on or bringing that runner in, followed by Nico. And then if you look at Nico's stats with 2 outs, the only time he's not good with 2 outs is 2 outs and a man on third. That's his only stat that he's not good at. 2 outs with men on base. He's typically hitting anywhere between 248, which is very low. We got 262, 300, 320, 500, 294, 320, all those in different scenarios. That's a guy with 2 outs that I really like to see. And then if he can do some damage, then you've got Kyle Tucker coming up, and he's just putting that exclamation point on the board. So this is my rounded out lineup, guys. Let me know what you think. Once again, Happ, Nico, Tucker, Seiya, Busch, Dansby, Amaya, PCA, Shaw. The 2 things that I will say, if PCA can learn to walk more, strike out less, boom, you've suddenly got a leadoff hitter. And then Ian Happ can go into his top position in 5th, put Busch down in 6th, and now we're really rolling. Matt Shaw, if he can start to hit the ball, again, it's been 2 games. We can't overreact here. If Matt Shaw is even just a 250 hitter with a 730 OPS, now you can start doing some things with him, moving him around in the lineup, and that can get really exciting as well. So I like this just to start off. I think there's some things that can move around. Let me know what you think. All right, I hope you enjoyed that exercise. That was fun for me. It's a lot of research, but I also am a huge believer that when you are put in a place that you can succeed, a place that you've proven you can succeed, then the likelihood of you having struggles, the likelihood of you having uncomfortable at bats, it just goes down dramatically. So putting these guys in spots that they're comfortable, you can see there's still maybe one piece missing there, or one guy that needs to perform so that the rest of the lineup can kind of fit into it, so it doesn't once again feel like a circle peg into a square hole. But I think this lineup puts us close. What do you think? Let me know. Make sure you watch along with us on Thursday as the Cubs open up their stateside season in Arizona. Upside, Cubs don't have to see Corbin Burns, apparently, so that's good, but Diamondbacks are really tough. Cubs always have a tough time in Arizona as well. We're going to see how this goes, but I'm going to go put my arm on ice. Setup Nation. See you next time.